Hello and welcome to today's episode of Velocity Kinetics. Today I just want to talk about subject I'm not very well versed in, which you might think is a bit weird given all the videos that I've made over the years, both as Velocity Kinetics and as Storm Space Productions when I used to do it. I want to talk about films today, and yes, whilst you could probably make all sorts of OnlyFans and pornographic jokes there as well, it's to do with cars I want to talk about. Now, as films go, like most people, I do enjoy a good film. Probably my favourite film series of all time is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I do enjoy the Ford versus Ferrari film, the Christian Bale and Matt Damon film. It's a very, very good and quite underrated in my my opinion. I do like The Great Escape. That's probably one of my favourite films. Hot Fuzz, right up there. British cult classic. Shaun of the Dead. Bohemian Rhapsody, probably my all-time favourite film for the most part. Run Fat Boy Run's a good feel-good film. If you're talking classic things like Disney, then Hercules. Disney, the original cartoon one's very, I think, is very good. What else have I got on my shelves behind me? The Shelves of Destiny. Now You See Me is a very good film. Paul is a very good film. Nick Frost and Simon Pegg. The Sherlock Holmes films, very good. Keeping Mum, very underrated film. But there's one thing I want to sort of link here. And just before I go any further, I apologise about the background fan noise. My computer processor is working overtime in the heat as of today, on the 20th of July, on the day of recording. It's a very hot day, about 30 something in the UK, which is not normal for ourselves. But I'm not going to complain. I know a lot of people are complaining it's hot in Satan's armpit or what have you, and 30 degrees in the UK is different to 30 degrees in Spain. So get used to it. It's happening. Stop complaining. We've got a bit of bloody sunshine for once so far this year. Anyway, so talking about one of my favourite films, Lord of the Rings, that's a very, very good film trilogy, hugely accurate in many depictions to the book, hugely inaccurate in many ways, but bits for timing, not uber nerding on the whole thing, weapon accuracy, tactics accuracy, you name it. And you can probably see where I'm going here. Actually, I'm going to have to encapsulate this to TV as well, because TV is just as inaccurate. Favourite TV programmes at the moment, FBI and CIS on that front. Rust Valley Restorers, although that's sort of reality-ish TV. Scrap Heap Challenge was always a good thing, but I don't watch a huge amount of actual TV these days. But again, any historical programme, whether it's docudrama, full-blown drama, what have you, they're all very accurate to the time frame, weapon accuracy, dress accuracy. Granted, not speech, but if they were to say, for instance, talk in full Shakespearean English, we wouldn't understand what they're saying half the time. Or at least my head would hurt trying to just chill out watching some TV. One thing though is there's a lot of inaccuracy in car noise. Again, period dramas do have a lot of the right vehicles. So, for instance, Billy Elliot had a lot of cars fitting the time on there. Call the Midwife on BBC has a lot of the cars for the time, like your Morris Travellers and things, and Morris Minors, and I think the Doctor drives. He's had a Ford Zephyr. He's got a Volvo now to some degree, and he had an MG of some other vintage as well, which has also done the rounds. But I suppose there's a lot of programs where they don't. I don't want to. I suppose you need to lose a little bit of reality. I suppose so. You can't have a hugely accurate thing, because I suppose in films like Fast and Furious, I know there's a lot of jokes that if they were to do, or someone pointed out factually that I'm trying to think they're trying to get some cars in the back of an AC130, that to have done it in the time frame that the film ran it in, and the speeds they're allegedly doing, the runway would have had to have been something like 8 miles long or something daft like that. It was hugely inaccurate, and the whole fact that the Fast and Furious seem to have a never-ending gearbox. It's like the number of times that they shift down to speed up, which does make sense. But if you're having to keep shifting down, then your turbo isn't right. Whatever forced induction you're using isn't working. There's actually more mechanical problems if you have to keep shifting down to get the speed up. The big thing I notice a lot though in films, TV, is the sound isn't right. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some scenes where it's clearly filmed wrong, as in it's clearly filmed very slowly. The cars are going very slow because they can't do it at the speeds they would need to do it at for full reality. More because it's a blink and you miss it. It's just too expensive, regardless of the size of your budget of your series or film. It's just too expensive to film a 60 mile an hour J-turn or a 60 mile an hour chase that gets up to into the hundreds. Why not do it where it's sort of 20, 30 and then dub in the sounds afterwards? I suppose it's a bit like a similar concept to Le Grand Rendezvous, where actually the guy strapped a camera low down on a Mercedes and then dubbed over Ferrari engine afterward. But what I mean by the sounds is using FBI as for example. Missy Peregrine, beautiful lead actress for the programme. I don't mean as in she's fit in that sort of beautiful, as in she's got the right attitude for the character. She brings Maggie to life very, very well and puts her own stamp on it. Zico Zaki as Omar Zidane, or Oe, very good choice, and I think he's again very good. They're a very good pairing for those characters. But an episode I was watching the other day in FBI, whether this now I'm not going to go into whether this is procedurally accurate for the actual FBI itself, but they use a lot of big GM Tahoes. I don't know what the Chevy is. Is it a Chevy Suburban? I believe it is. So I imagine them being big American SUVs. I do imagine that they use big V8s in the for the most part. What I do find odd though is in the chase scenes, or where they're getting to something on very on demand, is that the engine noise changes. Now your V8, and particularly in something like that, those big Suburbans, Tahoes and things, it's a very slow, lazy revving V8. It's a very sort of noises, at least how most other programs seem to depict that particular V8. And V8s tend to be quite grumbly, not in a bad way, but typically big American V8s with a big displacement are typically a very bumbly, grumbly sort of noise. But what catches my ear is then suddenly it'll go from being a V8 to being a 6-cylinder, and sometimes maybe even some turbocharged. It's suddenly a case of like either that engine has thrown two cylinders, in which case that should be sounding quite clattery, and likewise I should be able to hear the turbo of the 6-cylinder. It's a bit like, I suppose it's a case of at the end of it becomes anything will go, really, which I don't like. And don't get me wrong, they can't be completely accurate to the time, especially if it's something historical. They can't always do that right, because I'm sure in the Hunt versus Lauda film, I believe they had to sort of strip audio off Grand Prix and restore it as best as they could, because they obviously couldn't run a Cosworth engine from that era to the impact it needed to be. But in more modern things, it's a bit unacceptable. And now I appreciate that they may have, some cars they will have just a base chassis with a base engine, and then they'll put whatever body they want on top of it. It's just a cheap way to do production. But it's sort of if you're getting all the other bits right, I suppose my point in this video is, if you're going to the degree of getting all the FBI procedures right, if you're going to get all the medical procedures right, why is it when it suddenly comes to the car noise, can't be bothered? Go into all the details of how the gun fires, the more accurate gun sounds, and active reload and things like that, especially in things like FBI, SWAT, etc. Actually, to give SWAT its due, they do that one out of all the things I've seen, given the vehicles they use, tends to have a more accurate engine noise. But there was something I was watching, I think it could have been NCIS, and I do believe it was. Now, it was early NCIS, but I realised that they put on this very big grumbly V8 noise, and there was a bit of wheel spin going on. And it was a close-up shot of wheels spinning, so actually, technically it doesn't matter what wheels are spinning, whether it's front or back, if you're just getting a wheel spin shot. If the front-wheel drive model is cheaper for filming, they're going to use the front-wheel drive model and then do all the high-end V8 whatever afterwards. But then it made me realise they went to a wide shot with it spinning up its wheels. It's like, hang on, I'm pretty sure the only front-wheel drive V8 has been the Cadillac XLR from the sort of 70s, 80s. And unless you've cocked up and have thrown a drive shaft on an all-wheel drive car that happens to have a V8, for the most part, V8 cars are all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive. So suddenly seeing this thing, even in early 2000s, which I think NCIS started what, 03, 04, I believe. This is the Sasha Alexander series, so it would have been seasons 1 and 2. There wasn't, I'm pretty sure, I'm not up on my American models, but I'm pretty sure there wasn't any front-wheel drive V8 cars available from factory. Again, it's sort of another one of those silly, on the one hand it's a silly inaccuracy, and I'm not saying, oh, I dislike it because of it, it's one of those things as a petrol head, it's annoying to see. It'd be a bit like the iconic scene from The Great Escape where Steve McQueen jumps the fence. It'd be like suddenly zooming, when they go to the wide shot, even though it's still Steve McQueen on the bike, and it is the actual, I don't know what the model of the bike is that he's using, but it'd be like suddenly replacing that with a completely different model when he's up close. Like the modern equivalent of using a sports bike up close and then switching to a dirt bike for the jump and then back to the sports bike for the close up. And I guess that's also a case on a lot of motorbike stuff as well. I'm not as into my motorbikes or as knowledgeable on motorbikes, but again, to me, a lot of the sound just doesn't seem right. And again, there seems to be this whole stupid thing of endlessly shifting gears. And now, I'm trying to think what it was I was watching. I believe it was NCIS Hawaii, when where they were driving around, and they would look like they were driving about quite slow. So if you say 30, 40 miles an hour, which for most cars would be third, fourth gear, they then got the shout that they needed to go somewhere, so siren's on, put their foot down and get going. You don't hear the car shift down, you just hear the revs suddenly pick up, and it's also a case that suddenly there's a blip on the throttle, which, like, again, most American cars being automatic, there's no reason why it would blip. The only reason it would blip is if it's got something like a paddle gearbox, which they weren't using, because you'd see them engage a paddle, or it's not a manual either, because they would probably make a pointless shot of clutch going in and the gear being done, sort of a la Fast and Furious. And then when I was listening, because I said to Sarah, this shot doesn't seem right, and so we rolled it back. And the way the audio goes, again, I'm not up on my American trucks and things, but I would imagine it would, was it Dodge Durango I think they use, won't typically have much more than a 6 or 7 speed gearbox, especially with it appearing to be the SRT version. It would be quite a sporty gearbox. But by my ear, it shifted gear 11 times. And again, it's like you're trying to be procedurally accurate and solving all these really clever cases with correct science and things, but your car soundtrack is wrong. And I can't get my head around it. Ironically, one film that did get it very right was Hot Fuzz. The Subaru Impreza they use at the end that did the correct noises for it. I don't know how much of a driver Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are. I keep wanting to say Simon Frost and Nick Pegg, and really trying to get that right, which is hard, especially as I quite like Simon Pegg as an actor, and he seems just an all-round decent person, to be honest. But also, like, when they were doing the chase with Vauxhall Astra on Vauxhall Astra at the end of the film, again, noises kind of accurate. Didn't dub it over with some cheesy V8 or or 6-cylinder or even 5-cylinder. It was accurate, and I think that's what made that so good. It's sort of why the Steve McQueen Le Mans film has stood the test of time, because it's him driving, that is actual Le Mans footage, but it's accurate. It's why Ford versus Ferrari is very good. It's reasonably, at least in terms of engine noises, shifting gears and things, appears to be very accurate. Obviously there are bits in various bits of TV and film that will always be wrong, because it's kind of being done, I won't say on the cheap, but it's not being done accurately. So for instance, probably a great example is Kit from Knight Rider, claiming to be a 200 mile an hour plus Pontiac. It wasn't running stock parts, and Pontiac did reckon it. They didn't think it could do the speeds it claimed, but they knew it could do a lot more than standard. But there are some things where it's clearly sped up, and that's part of the cack of it. The A-Team, it's got to be Series 3 or 4, where they're doing something to BA's van, and he's cutting the grille. And obviously his van being a GMC, would have the GMC red letters on the front. Part of it's iconic, it's very iconic look. But there's a scene he's cutting into the grill that's clearly got a black Chevrolet badge on it, and then when they finish doing what they're doing, by magic it's got the GMC badge on. Although apparently the van never could, that van actually was based on, it could never do what it did in the TV series. But it was just a piece of cack in many ways, and very enjoyable, at least to me, enjoyable piece of stupidity. So, yeah, air your opinions down in the comments, and if you want more of this sort of content, give us a like, subscribe, like the Facebook page, give us a donation via paypal.me/velocitykinetics, and buy me a coffee. So that's www.buymeacoffee.com/customer service expert. It's customer service expert because there's a blog I contribute to, and that's the I started and I just contributed to it now. Just contribute on an off basis, which is called Customer Service Expert. If you would like to see more Swacecasts, check out the Swacecast playlist. That's sort of a podcasty free thought sort of video where I'm just driving around talking about personal things, Formula 1, my own struggles with potentially changing my car. I've just realised I've got some impressive truck drivers. Whoa. That is, at least on, I don't know how this is going to look in when it's edited, but on the little screen that my SLR's got, which are sort of like a preview screen, I can see rather than just talking out a lens. On the screen it's got that is quite a line. But yes, so after you've done all that call to action stuff, what do you think? Do you think films cheap out too much on cars at a point? Is that sort of a technicality, a correctness, whatever you want to describe it as? Is that something that just gets overlooked too much? Give me your thoughts in the comments. George? No, you're not getting a cat today. You might have heard his bell, but you're not getting to see the cat. Oh well. But anyway, like I say, join in the comments, drive safe, and look after yourselves, and we will see you next time.